noxious, hurtful, unwelcome, pernicious, highly injurious or destructive in character, deadly, intending or doing evil. Sounds a bit ominous, doesn't it? It should leave you with the idea that providing a home for noxious weeds is probably not the best practice. Welcome to Noxious Weeds. Protecting your investment by promptly dealing with environmental issues that affect your property is an important consideration. They are not likely to go away if you ignore them. The problem of noxious weeds gets progressively worse the longer efforts at treatment are delayed. This results in even greater difficulty in dealing with the issue, as well as escalating costs. This infestation of Canada thistle represents a significant issue for the landowners, more so because it's in the riparian zone. Noxious weeds are invasive plants that the state of Montana has declared a nuisance and are harmful to the native environment, croplands, and livestock. Noxious weeds were intentionally or accidentally introduced from Europe and Asia and do not have naturally occurring controlling agents here like predation or disease, which allows them to flourish. What are some of the characteristics of these plants that make them so undesirable? Spotted knapweed is a noxious weed that many landowners find it necessary to contend with. Spotted knapweed usually develops as a biennial, the first year forming a rosette. It should be mentioned that while each plant on the noxious list has its own individual characteristics, most important is that there are not any naturally occurring factors that readily controls their spread. A prolific seed producer, plants exude a chemical into the soil that prevents the germination of adjacent, more desirable plants. It should be noted that in the area of this weed patch, there are undoubtedly thousands of tiny seeds scattered about in the soil. The seeds can remain viable for more than 10 years. Keep in mind that passage through these weed-infested areas will spread the seeds to new locations by the means of tires, feet, animals, and wind. This will expand the size of the infestation and carry the seeds to new locations. We are looking at a noxious weed infestation of leafy spurge. The importance of noxious weed control on your property is, without proper management, noxious weeds will outcompete native and/or desirable plant species and create large infestations, if not monocultures. They reduce property values, reduce forage for native animals, can increase erosion, reduce crop and rangeland production, and many noxious weeds are toxic to livestock. Leafy spurge plants are very undesirable because of a vigorous creeping root system resprouting from those roots. Seed capsules burst open when ripe, scattering seeds widely. The plants are toxic to horses, cattle, and humans, forms monocultures, eliminates native species that are beneficial for wildlife. It is a state law that property owners may not allow noxious weeds to propagate and persist on their land. Refer to Montana Code Annotated Title 7, Chapter 22, Part 21. Enforcement compliance of the noxious weed laws for property owners that seek help with management from a local weed district or county extension is not an issue as long as owners actively manage the problem afterwards. Those that manage noxious weeds on their property, but adjacent property owners do not, can contact the district with a complaint. The weed district will investigate. Reports will be handled anonymously. Potential services for landowners. There are three main roles that county weed departments perform using funding provided through taxes. There's a fee for management of noxious weeds along county-owned roads and properties, enforcement of the state of Montana's noxious weed law, and assist landowners in weed identification and management on their property. It does not include actual treatment of weeds on private property. Let's look at tax bills from Cascade and Flathead counties. The highlighted line shows assessment for weed control. In Cascade County, the tax is $4.08. Flathead County assessment of 32 cents is for a different class of property. It also suggests that there may be significant differences in the level of services available. Each county has its own weed management plan template, Fees may be assessed depending on what is needed for the plan. One of the resources includes assisting landowners with weed management plans. Other services and/or duties might include rental of commercial spray equipment in some counties, assistance in acquiring state grant funds for noxious weed control on private lands through the Montana Department of Ag Noxious Weed Trust Fund, and coordinating and working with other government agencies. Most weed departments will meet with landowners to help develop a weed management plan as a free service. It should be noted that some have a combined weed department and extension service. We do have a request from a landowner to evaluate his property for potential weed issues, and you're welcome to join us. This is just a sample of what one county's weed management plan worksheet looks like. Each county will probably have something different and may work from a paper map, a computer, or smartphone, and this results in an opportunity to consider options and make recommendations. They review chemical labels to ensure that landowners understand restrictions and how to use chemicals. The weed person explains what weeds they are looking at and potential treatment options. Noxious weed treatment is not a one-shot effort. It requires continued effort over a number of years, and that could include some different treatment options as time goes on. Potential treatment options might include preventing infestation, grazing, biological control, herbicide applications, cultivation, hand pulling, cutting, and mowing. It should be noted, use of an inappropriate control option on a particular noxious weed can actually spread the problem. There are limits as to which options are suitable for each weed type. Hand pulling is limited to a few specific species and time of year. Also great for small patches, but very labor-intensive for large patches. Herbicide application through the use of a four-wheeler and spray unit as shown can cover large areas but have very special requirements with limited species. Biological control allows a landowner to treat one specific species with limited restrictions but is for long-term weed control since bugs are slow at controlling weeds. Biological control may not be available for each variety of noxious weed you need to control. Spotted knapweed is unique in that there are two biological control insects available. These beetles attack the roots and weaken the plant. Another biological control works on the flower seed head that reduces seed production. Additional services provided by some counties include rental of spray equipment for herbicide application. A list of commercial applicators might be supplied if the landowner is not up to the job of doing the control work themselves. Different types of spray equipment may be available. A very limited number of counties will rent appropriate spray equipment to meet your weed control needs. Additional sources of information can be found on websites including your county weed district and MSU Extension Service. The Montana Weed Control Association or Montana Department of Agriculture websites may also be referred to for noxious weed information. There are many publications from a variety of sources available on weed identification and treatment. Classes on weed control may be held at some locations. This class, sponsored by the Montana Land Reliance at Flathead Valley Community College, focused on spotted knapweed. Class discussion on biological control helps students better understand what bug works best for a specific noxious weed. In some areas, special weed events may be held benefiting public lands and at the same time educating the public about noxious weeds. Sun Canyon Weed Whacker Rodeo is one such special event. Many of these events are family-friendly and begin with a brief class on identifying the featured noxious weed and discussing weed issues on public lands. After the initial educational part, the volunteers spread out hand-pulling spotted knapweed at the Sun Canyon Weed Whacker Rodeo. These events frequently include a competitive event such as most pounds pulled, tallest weed, or longest root. Hey Mom, do you think this plant may win me the tallest plant prize? This event culminates with awards, drawing for prizes, and a barbecue. This volunteer teamwork at weed events is important at benefiting the controlling of weeds on public lands. Are you doing your part? Serious weed infestations impair use of the land if the landowner does not establish early and consistent control. Areas of the property may even become a dense monoculture of noxious weeds. The result is a seed bank that may be viable for more than 10 years that will require the landowner's vigilance if the noxious weeds will ever be controlled. The weed infestations also result in limiting land use and animal grazing, crop production, visual appeal, wildlife habitat, or any other useful purpose. Another issue may be potential fines for not complying with state noxious weed laws. Costs of treatment escalate with the spread of the noxious weeds infestation and can easily detract from the value of your investment. Don't let this happen to you.